Good afternoon. Welcome to the 2022 Bolch Prize for the Rule of Law celebration. What a privilege it is to be here and to join you in honoring Chief Judge Emeritus J. Clifford Wallace of the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. My name is Susan Bass Bolch, and on behalf of myself and my husband Carl and the Bolch Judicial Institute, I would like to welcome you here today. I'd particularly like to acknowledge and thank Peter Kahn, the chairman of the Bolch Judicial Institute Advisory Board and a 1976 Duke Law graduate. Peter has done so much for the Institute and to help make today happen, and we are so grateful. Carl and I founded the Bolch Judicial Institute in 2018 to support efforts to study, sustain, and advance the rule of law here and in the United States and worldwide. One of the ways we sought to do this was by recognizing and honoring those dedicated lawyers, judges, academics, and others who work to promote the rule of law, sometimes in harrowing circumstances. We created this prize in the hope that it would encourage and celebrate these rule of law heroes and thereby inspire others. So that brings us here today. For more than 50 years, Judge Wallace has worked tirelessly to advance the rule of law. Through teaching and listening, collaboration and partnership, he has helped judges and judiciaries across the globe improve the administration of justice and ensure the efficient and fair resolution of disputes. And when courts work effectively, fairly, and dependably, they earn the faith of the citizens upon whom the rule of law depends. Judge Wallace's work is the very sort of work we hoped our institute would support. By honoring you, Judge Wallace, we not only thank you and celebrate your many achievements, we also lift you up as a shining example. You show us the difference that one very dedicated person can make. It is my hope that each of us will leave today inspired to do whatever we can, however small, in whatever corner of the world we live, to sustain, protect, and advance the rule of law, which is the foundation of everything else that we hold dear. Given the list of people who will be speaking today, I am confident we will be inspired. With us today are Judge Margaret McKeown of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, D. Todd Christofferson, a leader of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a 1972 graduate of Duke Law School, U.S. District Judge David Campbell of the District of Arizona, Ambassador Manuel, a 1985 Duke Law graduate and a member of the Bolch Judicial Institute Advisory Board, and David F. Levy, the director of the Bolch Judicial Institute, former dean of Duke Law School, and former chief United States District Judge for the Eastern District of California. We'll then hear from Judge Wallace himself, and we will close with a presentation from the J. Clifford Wallace Inn of Court, led by Judge Lorna Alksney of the San Diego County Superior Court. Again, thank you, Judge Wallace, for your example, and thanks to all of you for being here today. Judge McKeown.
Good afternoon. It is a great honor for me to be here today to speak about J. Clifford Wallace and this amazing prize that he is receiving. I am here, along with all of the other federal judges, as the beneficiary of his path-making rule and role in the judicial administration. I am also here as a co-conspirator with him in the rule of law arena, and I'm here as a colleague and a friend. Now, with respect to judicial administration, it wasn't long before he joined the federal courts, and now he's been here for more than 50 years. He became a fellow, actually a senior scholar, at the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. And there he was bitten by the administration of justice bug. In the Wallace way, he dreamed up innovations, and then he set out to work with the Chief Justice to make them happen. Now, some of the key innovations that he initiated was to have an executive committee of the United States Judicial Conference. And that, of course, is the governing body of the entire federal judiciary. Now, it won't surprise you that he then served on the executive committee that he had actually created. He also then led the Conference of Chief Circuit Judges. And one of his other actually achievements that is very important to today's prize is that he was the first to regularize the International Judicial Relations Committee. That is a national committee of federal judges focused on the rule of law and also international judicial education. That, of course, dovetails with his other work in this area. Now, at the behest of Chief Justice Warren Burger, he then led a study on the future of the judiciary in 1982. And that was somewhat of a daunting task, that he was asked to actually figure out what would be the future of the judiciary. And an important thing that came out of that is the now amazing network of the American Inns of Court. And this staple of the legal profession embraces one of Judge Wallace's chief values, civility. He became Chief Judge of the Ninth Circuit in 1991, and he served in that role until 1996. And the breadth of his projects and innovations is really remarkable. First of all, he initiated a strategic plan. Now, that sounds a little bureaucratic, I'm sure, to have strategic planning, but Judge Wallace does not like having reports sit on a shelf. He is a man of action, not talk, and he was a leader in bringing our court into a new era. He also established task forces to study gender and racial bias in the federal courts, and those are themes that still resonate today. He did that in the early 1990s. I might add that that innovation almost cost me my confirmation to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So, when I heard that I was going to be appointed to this task force by Judge Wallace, I was honored and thrilled. I was a lawyer at the time, and Judge Wallace asked me to serve on this gender bias task force. Now, ultimately, that report was endorsed by Justice O'Connor, and it was really lauded throughout the judiciary. There had been some dissension in other circuits, but not the Ninth Circuit. So fast forward to 1998, during my confirmation period, the idea that I had served on a gender bias task force brought howls of opposition to my nomination from some corners. They labeled it radical. And I thought, radical? Judge Wallace? Well, finally they saw the light, and I became his colleague on the Ninth Circuit. The other thing that he recognized is the need to make access to justice a reality, and not something we just talk about, and not something that we just see in the marble engraved in the Supreme Court. So he created an appellate lawyer program that would provide pro bono services for litigants in our court on appeal. So now we have an experienced panel of many, many lawyers who are available to represent clients who are indigent. And the sweetener that was promoted by Judge Wallace and others is that guarantees the lawyer an oral argument, which in the day of our thousands of cases is something of a feat, to be guaranteed an oral argument before an appellate court. I must also say that one of his lasting contributions as chief was establishing the first mediation program in the United States in an appellate court. There was a lot of skepticism about that. How could mediation work in an appellate court after somebody has already gone through the district court and lost? Well, Judge Wallace, typically, he chose to ignore those skeptics and went ahead. And he pushed ahead to create this program that today, even at its high water mark, we mediate some 1,000 to 1,500 cases every year. And out of a docket that has ranged from 10,000 to 14,000, that is a significant number. And that is a very tangible contribution to the rule of law and to the role of justice and access to justice in the United States. Now, speaking of the rule of law, around the world, Judge Wallace's name is said with a certain amount of reverence, and it is synonymous with rule of law initiatives. You remember in your travels when you travel around and you go to a hotel and there's a picture. President Clinton slept here. President Bush slept here. First Lady was here. Well, I think it's like that with Judge Wallace. I learn wherever I go, and wherever those who also work in the rule of law field go, they say, Cliff Wallace was here. And they say it with enthusiasm and reverence. Now, he is the closest thing we have to a judicial rock star. He's advised governments, judiciaries on everything from case management to anti-corruption to mediation to actually staving off military interference with the courts in the name of judicial independence. He is also well known, both abroad and here, for his undying love of tab. And I would suggest to you that he probably knows more than the Coca-Cola company about this very special drink. And actually, rumor has it, because we know that they no longer make tab, that if you go around the world, he has stashed in various safe houses cases of tab. And I know he's done the same thing in his office in San Francisco, and he very dutifully counts the cans to make sure no law clerk or judge has sneaked in there to drink his tab. Importantly, his approach to rule of law is instructive. He isn't preaching the American system. He first works to understand the country, the culture, the dynamics, the needs, and then he works with both governments and judiciaries to craft innovations and to improve that system. I've worked with him on a number of projects as I've chaired the American Bar Association Rule of Law Initiative, and over and over and over, I hear how much the foreign judiciaries have appreciated Judge Wallace and what an impact he has made. He's worked in more than 80 countries, and he's made hundreds of trips. And in some ways, I think it's like his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. That number is just a snapshot, since he's probably traveled somewhere since we sat together last week in San Francisco, and he's probably had another great-grandchild, and I know one is on the way. So it's a moving target on his travels and the number of countries he's visited. I do want to focus on two really impressive initiatives that he has undertaken. Almost 50 years ago, he started working with the Asia Foundation, and from that work evolved what is known as the Conference of Chief Justices of the Asia Pacific. Now, for the first time, that group was brought together through Judge Wallace's efforts. They had a common regional geography, they had many common issues, but never before had those chief justices been in a forum together to learn from each other. The convener, of course, Judge Wallace. Now, in a similar undertaking, he and Judge Walker from the Second Circuit pioneered the Conference of Chief Justices of Central and Eastern Europe. It's a region that, of course, is much in the news today. In Israel, he spent 10 years as assistant in judicial administration to Chief Justice Barak. Now, you may wonder, how is it he could be an assistant to a foreign judiciary, be on the international judicial relationship of the Judicial Conference, and keep up to date on all of his cases? Well, the answer is because he is Judge Wallace. Now, sometimes I feel like I'm following him around the globe. And really, not long before COVID, I was in Vietnam and I was told, oh, Judge Wallace was just here. He also had the innovative idea to go to Congress years ago and ask for money for education for the Pacific Island judiciaries, including Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, Palau, and other countries, Republic of the Marshall Islands. And he was very successful. So we now have, all these years later, a continuing program with the Pacific Islands, and it is now linked specifically with the Ninth Circuit. Now, when he's asked, well, what country has become your passion over all these years? He says, without a beat, China. And not coincidentally, that's the country where he first went on his very first rule of law mission. Together, he and I serve on the ABA Rowley Asia Council. And time and again, we are able to draw on his counsel about how to deal with many of the difficult situations faced by the rule of law in China. He is buoyed by his experience as only he could be, and he actually looks forward with some optimism on rule of law in China. Now, it's no surprise, I'm sure all of you who know him, that these trips are not vacations. He doesn't sightsee, he doesn't take extra days, he gets right back to work. When he's there, he lives on faxes. Now, that may seem a little antiquated to some of you, but his clerks and his assistants know that all of the briefs, bench memos, research would be faxed to Judge Wallace in some country, and then he would run around till he could find somewhere to print these mountains of material. But the point is that he never missed a day of work on these trips, and he never missed being totally on time with all of his cases in the Ninth Circuit. So I think it would be hard to overstate his contribution to rule of law work as a thought leader and also as someone who has real boots on the ground experience. His offices, both here in San Diego and also in San Francisco, they're like going to museums of the rule of law. There might be a tea set from Thailand. There's plaques from country after country. There's awards from foreign countries. There's flags and more. But we all know that Judge Wallace is not a collector of experiences. It is his many years of experience that have really made the difference to so many judiciaries. I want to close with a few comments on Judge Wallace as a colleague. He remains the high watermark of what a judge should be: prepared, open-minded, dignified, and respectful. So even after 52 years on the bench, every case matters, and he understands that behind every case is a person, a company, an entity to whom that case matters the most. So although he is quite serious, as you know, and thoughtful, every now and again, a little twinkle and a little smile and a touch of humor might actually creep into his questions to the lawyer. And I have appreciated those moments. Now, as a colleague, I have found him to be very flexible in his approach to cases. He's always concerned about the court and the justice system, and he rightly understands that perceptions matter. So even when we disagree, and I must say, there are times I have not agreed with Judge Wallace, but even then, he is very respectful and we can agree to disagree. He doesn't have a harsh or a mean pen. He embodies the principles that embraced that Inns of Court model and the movement. So knowing Judge Wallace, we also know that he is in amazing shape, and he takes very good care of himself. His former passion for jogging is well known around the chambers, around the court, and even in judges around the world, because they will say, oh, you mean the jogging judge, if they can't immediately recall, the tall jogging judge. They know him from his early morning and lunchtime jogs. He recently circulated to the court a message that he labeled Great Quote. Here's what it said. You don't need to feel good to get going. You need to get going to feel good. So in closing, I salute Judge Wallace, Chief Judge Emeritus, as a perfect honoree for this award. And I assure him that we are all going to get going to play our parts to continue to make the rule of law a reality, both in the United States and around the world. Thank you, and congratulations, Judge Wallace.
That sets a high bar. I'm grateful on this occasion to join the Bolch Institute and my alma mater, Duke Law School, to speak a word of tribute for Judge J. Clifford Wallace as he receives the 2022 Bolch Prize for the Rule of Law. It's a pleasure to honor such an accomplished and remarkable man. You're all well aware of Judge Wallace's talent in legal scholarship, his exemplary judicial temperament, and his devotion to the effective administration of justice. These admirable qualities explain in part how he's been able to achieve so much in so many places over so many years. But I believe there's something even more fundamental that motivates and empowers Judge Wallace. Others have remarked about Cliff's three great priorities: his family, his religion, and his profession. They're obvious to anyone who knows him, and he's not shy to share his enthusiasm for each of these cornerstones of his life. Not surprisingly, I'd like to comment a bit further about the influence of his faith. I think most, if not all of you, will be familiar with the New Testament story of the lawyer challenging Jesus with what he thought would be a difficult question. Despite having my own law degree, I don't want to defend this lawyer because of his motives. But I am grateful that he asked the question that he did, because it brought such an important response from Jesus. The lawyer asked, "Master, which is the great commandment in the law?" Jesus said unto him, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, with all thy mind. And the second, this is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." Not quite satisfied, or as the scripture says, willing to justify himself, this unnamed lawyer asked a follow-up question. "And who is my neighbor?" In the Lord's response, we have the moving parable of the Good Samaritan. It's easy to discern in Cliff Wallace that he has fully internalized the lessons of that parable and the call to love God and fellow man. He has an insatiable desire to make a difference for good in this world. And he is one who appreciates his own blessings and recognizes the ultimate source of those blessings. Consequently, he has a refined sense of accountability to God for his life and what he does with his life. I've been many places in the world, and some of them crossing paths with Cliff and Janae, and have seen, as he has, the tremendous hardship visited upon those for whom justice is denied because justice is delayed and delayed and delayed. I remember visiting a jurist in New Delhi and wading through stacks of files lining the walls of his courtroom and the hallway to his office. I cringed to think of the many people represented by those interminable stacks of files gathering dust, whose causes would likely never be resolved, even if they could be found. At that moment, I wished again that we could clone Clifford Wallace to establish his carefully thought-through docket management and mediation structures in every corner of the world, and do it right now. Judge Wallace once said, "There is no rule of law until a litigant has a judgment from the highest court that the law allows." His appellate-level case management and court mediation processes, and his vision of the effective judicial administration generally, always adapted to local circumstances, as Judge McKeon mentioned, has decreased delays substantially and better implemented the rule of law in many parts of Asia, the Pacific, Africa, Central, Eastern Europe, Central America, and beyond. It's truly amazing to consider what one man's persistent efforts can yield. Cliff gets more done than any one person has a right to accomplish at age 92 or at any age. Still, I'm grateful that he's always thinking ahead and that he's bringing others into the ring to expand and carry on his efforts. God bless them all. A significant part of Cliff's success is his wife, Janae. She's just the right combination of Marine drill sergeant and solicitous nurse. I don't know he'd be able to do as much or much of what he does without her. In addition to her affectionate care and support, Janae makes her own contributions. Her talent with the violin and her warm, gracious personality have charmed and helped win over many of those whose consent and support are needed to adopt and move forward Cliff's projects. When these prominent jurists and other leaders get acquainted with Janae, they're more willing to give Cliff some attention. Another of our scriptures enjoins us to act by persuasion and with genuine love and regard for others, rather than by exercising whatever authority we may have to impose our will. This is Cliff's modus operandi. There's no question about his commitment or how much he cares, but he never tries to force a proposal or a solution. He knows that for anything good to endure, the beneficiaries or potential beneficiaries have to buy into it, and they have to own it. Therefore, he appeals to the innate goodness in all of us, and with a smile, persuades us that we can do better and follow a better path. Thank you, Judge Wallace, dear friend, for your Christ-like service and contributions to the welfare of others here at home and around the world. Thank you for the example of a life well lived that inspires all of us to strive to make a difference for good.
I had the privilege of serving as a law clerk to Judge Wallace when we were both much younger. And for the last few years, I have had the privilege of assisting him in a very small degree in some of his international work. And I would like to provide a little insight into what lies behind his accomplishments, particularly his international accomplishments. The first trip that we made together was one that started in an airport where we agreed to meet and then go through a series of flights to southern Africa. And he warned me, he said, do not check a suitcase. Pack everything you need for more than a week in a carry-on. And so I crammed a suit and a bunch of dress shirts and ties and everything else into this carry-on and wore comfortable, warm clothes that I thought would be appropriate for a 22-hour flight. And I was surprised when I arrived at the gate and Judge Wallace was standing there in a blue suit, a white shirt, and a red tie, holding a very small suitcase. He looked at my bulging suitcase and he said, "You know, I found if I wear my suit, I don't have to pack it." And I thought, well, yeah, but what will it look like when you get there? And as if reading my mind, he said, "And if you buy a polyester suit, it won't wrinkle." We flew that distance. We arrived late at night. The next morning, when I was absolutely incapacitated with jet lag, Judge Wallace went running at age 80 through the streets of Haberoni in a multicolored jogging suit. That's what was packed in his little suitcase. He gave me other travel tips along the way. He said, if you bring a really small bottle of laundry detergent, you only have to pack one pair of socks. He said you just wash your socks in the sink at night and you set them out to dry while you work the next day, and on the third day you've got a clean pair of socks. And it works with other kinds of clothing as well. As we started work that day, I soon learned he was all business. That we were not there to see sights, we were not there to take in new experiences. It was work from morning till night. He was looking, he was analyzing, he was making recommendations, he was explaining practices used in other parts of the world, he was developing relationships, and when we would finally get to the end of our day with the judges we were working with, he would open his briefcase and out would come his day job and his red felt pen, and he'd start editing opinions and get them done in time to get him into a Federal Express package to the front desk of the hotel to be sent off that night before he fell into bed and got up to jog the next morning. I've learned that he devotes the same tireless dedication to his international work even when he is not traveling. For the last couple of years, he has been copying me on some of the emails he sends abroad, corresponding with judges around the world, following up on programs he's initiated, making new recommendations, commenting on things he's read in the international press about their countries. So I went back the day before yesterday and I counted the countries he's corresponded with in the last 12 months during a pandemic at age 93. And they include Thailand, South Africa, Singapore, Dubai, Mexico, Australia, South Korea, the Maldives, China, Turkey, Vietnam, Pakistan, Uganda, India, Mexico, Russia, Taiwan, and Ukraine, obviously in earlier days with Ukraine. That's just in the last 12 months. I also learned that his experiences abroad are not a series of uninterrupted successes. It is very challenging and difficult work because there are setbacks, there are reverses, there are new regimes that come in, and as we all know, it is very hard to persuade judges to change the way they do things. One example is recently he has seen years of work that he has devoted to China and Russia, frustrated by authoritarian changes in those countries. And yet he never gets discouraged. He just keeps plugging on in good cheer, looking for the next opportunity or creating the next opportunity. Much of his work involves exhortation. It involves advocating for the rule of law, shoring up judicial independence, encouraging dedicated and public-minded judges around the world. As we all know, the rule of law and judicial independence are perishable, and we need people like Judge Wallace and like the Bolch Institute to continue advocating for those, not only around the world, but here in our own country. Sometimes his work produces remarkable change, and it has in a number of countries. As just one example, He was asked after speaking at an international conference by the Chief Justice of Botswana, who was in the audience, if he would please come to Botswana and help them solve a problem they had not been able to solve for years. Their civil caseload was so backlogged that the citizens were losing faith in the courts as a way to find relief from problems. So Judge Wallace went there, he diagnosed the problem, he recommended the solution, which they implemented, and in 5 years, the backlog in the High Court of Botswana, which is the main large general jurisdiction court, dropped from 11,000 cases per judge to less than 2,000 cases per judge, applying what Judge Wallace had recommended. The country next door, Namibia, took note of what happened. Their high court adopted the same recommendation and in 2 years increased their civil case processing time by 250%. Sometimes his work bears remarkable fruit. But to summarize, when I think of what Judge Wallace has accomplished worldwide, I don't think of the accolades, I don't think of the sights he's seen. I think of him washing his socks in the sink at night. I think of him sleeping in uncomfortable beds and eating strange food and missing his family and long hours on airplanes, working from the start of the trip to the end of the trip. I think of persistent, untiring dedication to make the world a better place. My wife Stacy, who has also observed Judge Wallace's work, calls him the drip that formed the Grand Canyon. Not that you're a drip, Judge Wallace, but your persistent, selfless sacrifice over decades has truly made a Grand Canyon of difference for judiciaries all over the world. Congratulations on this well-deserved award.
Honorable Judge Wallace, I never had the pleasure to meet you until lunch today, but when I read your bio a few weeks ago, I felt like I already knew you. That's in part because you seem to combine so many qualities I wish I had, but it's also because I have detected in you a kindred spirit. For one thing, we both have traveled to many parts of the world, and you also never leave home without your jogging shoes. And as I learned today, you also only travel with carry-on and do your laundry in the sink, just as I do. As a diplomat of 32 years, I know exactly what your colleague was talking about. I could also say that we're both lawyers, but that would be very immodest on my part. It would be like saying to Roger Federer, I'm a tennis player too. I have been recovering from the legal profession for 36 years now, while we are, of course, very much here today to celebrate your continuing passion for it. Distinguished guests, most importantly, though, for what I have learned about Judge Wallace, he and I share a conviction, I believe, a conviction that is very much at the heart of the Bolch Institute that has accorded the award today to Judge Wallace. It's the conviction that the rule of law, access to justice, and the independence of the judiciary, that they're not just tenets of personal ethics that are either upheld or violated behind the closed door of a courtroom. They are very much indicators of the values that prevail outside the courthouse. Former UN Secretary Kofi Annan once said, "The human family will not enjoy development without security, will not enjoy security without development, and will not enjoy either without respect for human rights." This interdependence between prosperity, security, and human rights is very much at the center of the UN Agenda 2030 and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Now, some may argue that, for example, SDG 2 is more on zero hunger is more important than SDG 8 on decent work and economic growth. And both are more important than SDG 8, calling for just, peaceful, and inclusive societies. But I think that's missing the point. The question is not whether one goal is more important than the other. The real question is, can we achieve one without the other? And in my opinion, the answer is no. Where one is threatened, all the others are precarious at best. Recognizing that equal access to justice and equal access to prosperity, that they are on equal footing, and one without the other is an empty slogan. Now, what are judges like Judge Wallace, what are they supposed to do, recognizing this link? Are they supposed to go out and help cassava farmers in southern Africa in boosting their cassava production? Of course not. Judges are experts in the administration of justice, here with a justice with a small j. That's the knowledge they most sensibly pass on to those who are willing to learn. But in doing so, I think they must be aware of what happens to the smallholder farmer out in the cassava field, because what happens out in the cassava field very much is linked to what happens to the same farmer in the courthouse. If the farmer cannot enforce her contracts, she will be cheated by middlemen. If her land rights are not upheld in court, she can't mortgage her property to buy seeds and equipment. The injustice will crush her spirit. She will never trust a system that keeps her down. She will stay small, and she will stay under the radar. Now, if one farmer does that, the system shrugs. But if 70 or 80% of farmers do that, like in so many shadow economies of the world, then the system gasps for air. Institutions that are not trusted, they wither, and sooner or later become irrelevant. In dozens of countries, we already have heard it, Judge Wallace has advised judiciaries in combating corruption, one of the big scourges of our day in many parts of the world. He helped set up mediation programs, and in one case, at least even staved off judicial interference by a military president. I asked Judge Wallace over lunch which case in his long career made him most pleased to be a judge. None seemed to stick out at that moment, but he did share with me that his greatest passion has always been helping to improve judicial systems in different parts of the world. I see behind all these efforts one overarching objective: to restore the broken bond between the governing and the governed, to restore trust by restoring justice. Justice and trust, two indispensable ingredients of a functional society and a viable democracy. Justice Sandra Day O'Connor said of Judge Wallace, "No one has done what he has done in terms of improving the judicial system around the world." As I have tried to explain here, I think that Judge Wallace had set his sights even higher than that. His aim has been to transform societies in their foundations, always with one eye on the courthouse and one eye on the main square. Thank you, Judge Wallace, for your service around the world, and congratulations on your award today. Thank you.
Congratulations to Judge Wallace for winning the Bolch Prize 2022. Judge Wallace was the influential factor that Malaysia introduced mediation, which resulted in a drastic and speedy reduction of pending cases in Malaysia. I was at first very hesitant or doubtful whether mediation would work in Malaysia. Judge Wallace came over and spent a day with the judges in Malaysia, and thereafter it is history. Thank you very much, Judge. Of course, speedy disposal of cases, to me, is an extension of the rule of law. Judge Wallace is now helping the DIFC courts in Dubai, where I'm also the Chief Justice, to implement mediation as well. And he's encouraging the Gulf courts, or rather courts in the Gulf territory, to work together to form sort of an association. And the intention is, of course, towards better implementation of the rule of law. Thank you.
I would love to congratulate him on the award of this honor, and he richly deserves this because he has been a strong advocate for the rule of law, both domestically and internationally. Well, I was a judge at the Lahore High Court when a delegation headed by Judge Wallace came to Lahore, and it interacted with judges, which included myself. They gave us an overview of how ADR works in US and how they get their cases disposed of rather expeditiously. The delegation advocated that to meet the challenge of backlog in Pakistan, ADR should be introduced. Over the years, I found him to be a friend, a mentor, and a guide. He believes in the rule of law. He believes in fundamental rights. He is religious, but he is very liberal at the same time. It's always a pleasure to be in his company.
Cliff and I actually share this perspective in the sense that a lot of the narrative and the discussion on the rule of law tends to focus on substantive content. It tends to focus on sort of the content rather than the delivery of justice. And my view, my personal view has always been that it's so much more important to ensure that a good system of law is accessible to people. In other words, the focus should be on delivering justice to people rather than on theoretical concepts that remain on the bookshelf, if you know what I mean. You can have the best system in the world, but if you can't access it because it is too arcane or too alien in any of a number of ways, it just remains a theoretical construct. And Cliff's work has focused on getting this message across to judges, and in particular to chief justices, who, as people who head judiciaries, have the opportunity to shape their systems in such a way that they can actually take steps to deliver the values by implementing policy changes. I think that Cliff has always been focused on the fact that the rule of law is ultimately not just something for lawyers, it's actually something for people who need justice. You know, we're just ministers, we're just people who bring justice, who administer the system. But the real beneficiaries of the system are the people who are seeking justice. And I think to be able to have influenced and affected that process for millions of people around the world by effecting changes through the judicial systems, I think is really, to me, the biggest hallmark of Cliff's life work. Cliff, it is an absolute privilege for me to have this opportunity to say a few words on this occasion. I can't think of a better recipient of this prize. I think that the rule of law is ultimately about bringing justice to people, and you have devoted your life to that. And for that, I congratulate you. I continue to be inspired by you, and I greatly respect you. And I really am so happy that you have received this award. Congratulations.
I am so proud and so honored to have met Justice Wallace, such a distinguished person. I'm so proud to have worked with him. And I'm so proud that in Uganda, even yesterday, I was addressing a conference of judges on the alternative dispute resolution, and I cited Judge Clifford Wallace as one of the people we can say the grandfathers of alternative dispute resolution in Uganda. If people don't have a functioning judicial system to go to when their rights have been violated, then of course you can't say I have a rule of law, but my courts don't work. And I think this opens up we call it the streams of justice, if the courts are functioning properly. So if the cases are being managed properly, that's one of his passions, case management. If people can go to court and have their disputes resolved amicably in a speedy manner, whether by judicial decision or by court-annexed mediation, or even by private mediation, the important thing is the citizens go about their business in the normal way as speedily as possible. And so anything that removes a clog on the administration of justice, and I think that is what has been his passion, is something that contributes to the rule of law. And we are beginning to see that in Uganda as well. So I'm so proud to have known him. I'm so happy for him. And may he live another 100 years so that he can teach more and more people all over the world. I'm so happy for him, and my biggest greetings to him.
Well, good afternoon, and may I say, wow. Only Cliff could be the subject of a video like that, with heartfelt congratulations from judges in Pakistan, Malaysia, Uganda, and Singapore, not to mention the very beautiful tributes we've heard from our speakers here this afternoon, and thank you to them. And thank you to all of you for being here and participating in this year's Bolch Prize ceremony as we celebrate Cliff's accomplishments, incredible accomplishments, and we reflect upon the rule of law. I'm David Levy. I'm the director of the Bolch Judicial Institute, and I'm a former U.S. District Judge in the Eastern District of California. Cliff was my chief judge for several years, and so what a personal privilege it is for me to be here today to award this prize to Cliff. The Bolch Prize was created by Carl and Susan Bolch when they first established the Bolch Judicial Institute in 2018. Our founding documents specify that the prize shall be given to recognize the achievement of an individual or organization in creating, promoting, or preserving the rule of law nationally or internationally. We have now awarded 4 prizes since our founding, each to a remarkable judge who has advanced the rule of law. Justice Anthony M. Kennedy of the United States Supreme Court, Deputy Chief Justice Digang Moseneke of the Constitutional Court of South Africa, Chief Justice Margaret Marshall of the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, and today, Judge J. Clifford Wallace of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. What a remarkable group of people this is. It is our hope that this award will both honor the achievements of these incredible individuals, and also inspire others. The award reminds us all that the rule of law does not come easily, nor can we be confident that once it has come, that it will stay. It requires work, sacrifice, and constant care in order to flourish. A judicial system that does not deliver fair and lawful decisions in a timely and efficient manner will not earn the faith of the people that it serves. And if the people do not have confidence in the system, then they will not see any reason to support it or protect it. And as we know, we must protect it. Threats to the rule of law come in many shapes and sizes. In some parts of the world, autocrats try to dismantle the rule of law by attacking the judiciary and its independence. They do this by changing judicial tenure, firing or imprisoning or killing judges, disregarding court decisions, or sowing doubt in the system's impartiality. In other places, the threats might be less obvious. Social media campaigns, sometimes launched from abroad by hostile nations that question the integrity of particular judges, or legislative efforts that punish courts for particular decisions. Public faith in the judiciary is the best guardrail against such threats. Judges can nurture that faith by doing their work carefully and honorably, by doing whatever they can to make sure the justice system is both fair and efficient as it can be. Then it's up to all of us, judges, lawyers, and citizens, to tell the story to the people in classrooms, courtrooms, and wherever we may gather in person, which we are now so fortunate as to be able to do, or online. This is the on-the-ground work of strengthening the rule of law, making sure the system works for the people and that the people understand that it works and how it works. It is the work of every generation, and it must be constantly renewed. As we've heard here today, this is the work that Judge Wallace has dedicated his life to. He's done this work in over 70 or 80 countries and on countless law reform committees and initiatives. And it is clear that he has left not only a lasting mark on many of the world's judiciaries, but he has also made a deep personal impression on the people, the many people that he has worked with. Justice Kennedy is one of those people, and he asked me to share some of his thoughts about Cliff this afternoon. He and Cliff have a deep friendship and mutual admiration that goes back to when they served together on the Ninth Circuit. Justice Kennedy writes, Cliff Wallace's gifts to the legal profession and the rule of law will remain all but unrivaled here and abroad, now and in the years to come. Those who may be honored by the Bolch Award as time progresses will be thrilled to be linked with Judge Wallace's career and accomplishments. Cliff, your stature now becomes part of the meaning and purpose of the Bolch Award. Some years ago, at the request of our State Department, it was important for me to call a conference for judges from countries in and near Southeast Asia. The meeting was in Bangkok. On my arrival, the car taking me from the airport entered the main part of the city. We passed a brick building, perhaps 3 stories high. Responding to my comment that it was impressive and inviting, the driver said, "Oh, that is the Cliff Wallace Building for Judicial Training. Our judges go there to learn more about law and justice." Like Margaret, Cliff not only had preceded me to a place halfway around the world, in a real sense, he was still there. Well, this was nothing new. It was neither the first nor the last time he was out ahead. Cliff, the rest of us may not come close to your list of accomplishments and gifts to the law here and abroad, but this is clear. We who have had the honor of working with you over the years value your leadership and remarkable achievements, and we value, too, our warm, enriching, inspiring friendship that we will cherish in all the years to come. Congratulations. Thank you, Justice Kennedy, for those words. I recently had the opportunity to interview Judge Wallace for a Bolch Institute podcast that I do, a series called Judgment Calls. We talked about his career, his international work, and his family, and his faith. In all areas of his remarkable life, there was a common thread, a sense of duty to serve. I asked Cliff where that sense of duty came from. He said that he is called to serve because although he had a difficult start in life, he found purpose and meaning in the church he joined as a teenager, in his experiences in the military, and in the help he received from others. Cliff, I think one of the reasons you have been able to do so much good and do it so effectively is because of who you are and the way you carry yourself in the world. You are a collaborator, a helper. You are a listener. A judge should be a good listener. You share ideas, and you learn from others as much as they might learn from you. Of course, not every country that you have worked in has embraced democracy or human rights in all the ways that you would have liked. But you meet these challenges with the same hope that you bring to all of your work, that your efforts may improve a process or a system that will better the experience of everyday people who are seeking solutions to problems. And this in turn will improve relationships in a community, increase public faith in the judicial process, and ultimately strengthen the social fabric. These are the building blocks, the ground game of the rule of law. Judge Wallace, for your many contributions to our courts here in the United States and around the world, for your tireless efforts to improve the administration of justice, for your dedication to the rule of law, and for your inspirational example of leadership, civility, and humility, on behalf of the Bolch Judicial Institute, I am pleased to award you the 2022 Carl and Susan Bolch Prize for the Rule of Law. And would you please join me on the podium so that I may present the prize to you.
Thank you so much for being here with me this day. These are the people who have interacted with me over the years, who have given me confidence, a belief that more can be done, and I'm grateful for the inspiration that you have provided. I just want to say something, a word or two about this prize. The Bolch Prize focus upon the rule of law. There's some difficulty at times determining exactly what the rule of law is. For example, in Bush versus Gore, both the Supreme Court majority and dissent claimed they were following the rule of law. While this can be a problem, it generally is not, because the rule of law phrase refers to a principle, not its application. What is significant here is that the rule is one of law and not a rule of some other power. It is the starting place for judges to be reminded that their decision is not based upon what they would have the law be, but what the law currently is. That is the rule they are to follow. The rule of law offers the hope of fundamental fairness, distinguished from a rule developed by an individual, such as a political executive or some other person with power. The rule of law provides a starting place with which we can all agree. To show its importance, the rule of law since World War II has been included in many governmental and regional documents. Indeed, the United States Constitution is best understood as maintaining that the rule of law shall be the governing law for all its citizens. It is the role of the judiciary under Article 3 to make sure that the laws and actions of Congress in Article 1 and the executive pursuant to Article 2 are within the rule of law. Thus, the rule of law is a founding principle of our Constitution. The first Congress adopted the first amendments to the first 10 amendments to the Constitution in order to make sure. The rule of law was internationalized by the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This declaration demonstrates that the rule of law has international implications and justifies working with all countries to develop and preserve the rule of law. This analysis has been a significant part of my interest in the work for over 50 years in 72 countries. I'm grateful to the Asia Foundation, which supported me in furthering this interest in the beginning years. Indeed, the first country where I worked was the People's Republic of China, just after the disastrous Cultural Revolution. I'm also grateful to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for its encouragement and assistance over the last 20 years. Nevertheless, the rule of law cannot be effective in countries unless there is a separate and independent judicial system. This separation of powers of government idea was first initiated in the French Revolution, which resulted in separating the legislature from the executive. Having a separate judiciary to enforce the rule of law was an idea that was first initiated by the adoption of the Constitution of the United States of America. Consequently, the challenge of assisting all countries in the development of the rule of law is an important task. The Bolch Judicial Institute has developed carrying out programs to assist this implementation of the rule of law worldwide. However well-intentioned each country's constitution and declarations may be, the judiciary must be strong enough to implement the rule of law. With a weak judiciary, the result desired is unachievable. It was this realization that started me on the path 50 years ago of strengthening the judiciaries worldwide so that the rule of law could be implemented. Thus, constant attention to new ways for courts to operate to provide prompt and effective decisions is indispensable to achieve the implementation of the rule of law. Yes, sometimes I feel like a legal plumber, fixing and improving the judicial systems. Indeed, this is an ongoing project. My 5 decades in this effort has taught me that we will never finish with this project. There will always be more to be done in some country, somewhere, to strengthen the judiciary so that the judiciary in turn can protect the rule of law. Thus, I congratulate the both Judicial Institute and its founders, Carl Bolch Jr. and Susan Bolch, for focusing upon this fundamentally and indispensable need to strengthen the rule not only in our country, but worldwide. With humility and commitment and thanks, I gratefully accept this most meaningful prize and pledge my continuing involvement to the principle for which it stands as far as I can. Thank you very much for attending.